Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the OMA's Insights and Innovation Series. Today, we've got the OMA joining us to update us on the latest and greatest of what's happening over there. We've got the great Grant Guesdon. I try to put a French accent when I say that. He's been with the OMA since 2008, and then probably shortly after that, he started to build out Move in 2010, which he's been working on ever since. Probably since then, he's been working on 2.0, which is slowly coming to fruition. And in the interim, we've got 1.5, which is the biggest innovation in the outdoor industry since 2000 and the last 10 years. So without further ado, he's going to talk you through the metrics, what it means to you guys from a planning and buying perspective, and everything you know in between. So Grant, I'm going to hand over to you to take over.
Thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. As Sam said, I'm here to talk to you about the latest evolution we've got in the audience measurement for Move, which is 1.5, and more importantly, how we believe it can help you plan and buy a better out-of-home campaign. What I'm going to show you today is how we first of all went about measuring the audience of digital campaigns, because they are a little bit different to measuring just a classic sign, and also the value of the new value-based currency that we've added, which is the Neuro Impact Factor. And I'll talk about then in the third section how you can use those to plan a better out-of-home campaign or optimize your out-of-home campaign, and how we can demonstrate we move across the funnel. Plenty of time left over at the end to ask questions. This presentation will probably take about 30 minutes. So, look, what is the reason behind Move 1.5? When Move launched, in 2010, it was the best-in-class system. Use of visibility data ensured that not only were we able to say to you that somebody was in the viewing zone of a sign, but also that they were paying attention. So we had viewability and attention as part of that metric. The channel's grown a lot since then. So we've launched with building a new Move 2.0 system that will encompass all the best practice that we learned from 2019. It's going to take us a while to pull all of that data together. There isn't that magic data set that you can say, oh, if I just get some mobile data, I can measure everything. Can't do it for out of home. It's not going to work indoors. It's not going to be able to tell the difference between the cafe downstairs and a meeting upstairs. So, we're building that together. It's going to take a while. And when we give it to you, it will cover all formats. So we'll be measuring all the place-based environments, plus all the ones we currently measure. We'll be measuring regional. We'll be measuring 365 days of the year with hourly data. So there'll be very granular pictures of each individual sign nationwide, whether they be in Sydney or in Hobart or in Alice Springs. But as you'd be aware, digital is now more than half of revenues. So we have to do something in the meantime and to give you a more accurate measure for a digital campaign. It won't be down to an individual spot, but at a campaign, Move 1.5 is the interim solution. And we've gone beyond just measuring those that are paying attention with the visibility to measure what the impact of that attention is having with the neuroscience. So the neuroscience is the extra bit, if you like. And the addition of the NIF provides you in Move 1.5 with the world's first value-based currency measure for out of home. It's not measuring the quality of the sign, it's measuring the quality of the impact at a format level, an average for that format. I'll just run a quick video that explains how we've gone about the 1.5 audience and how that's changed.
We're living in an attention economy, exposed to a variety of advertisements every day. How can you ensure that people see your message and that your media choices are targeted and measurable? The answer is Move. Move is the world-class audience measurement system for the out-of-home industry. It's a highly developed system that uses evidence-based science to track visibility, exposure, and attention as people travel to work, shop, and socialize. Covering all the major markets and formats, we understand the unique features and locations of every sign, which means you can tailor your campaign for maximum exposure to your audience. The data in Move is gathered from land usage, the census, government household surveys, eye tracking, and other third-party data sources, such as public transport stops and timetables. This data gives us the granular detail of the millions of trips people take across all major markets in Australia on a typical day. Importantly, Move measures attention. We start with the sign's potential audience, the opportunity to see, OTS, using sign characteristics, size, location, and visibility. And then we go beyond OTS and use eye tracking data to calculate likelihood to see, which pinpoints actual viewing. This forms the base of Move and has been updated in Move 1.5 to more accurately measure digital signs by including factors for rotating creative. We've done this by considering the duration of audience dwell and sign dwell for all signs, allowing us to measure impressions for each ad, which means that you know the real reach of your campaign. So now you can use Move 1.5 to plan campaigns for reach and frequency based on impressions and also impact. With our new Neuro Impact Factor that reports the impact of each out-of-home format across our entire network of classic and digital signs, putting in the palm of your hands for the first time ever the ability to uniquely measure your entire campaign, which makes Move 1.5 the most robust and accurate audience measurement platform in Australia. Now that's worthy of attention. We're living in an...
So that video covered a bit. Look, if we just did a quick summary of what's new about Move 1.5, the existing Move system gives you an average weekly audience for your campaign based on those sign characteristics. So as signs change in size and illumination, you end up with a different audience score in the Move system, all based on the likelihood to see or the eye tracking saying someone is actually looking at the sign. With Move 1.5, what we've taken into account is the average weekly audience remains the same. There's some animation here, Kylie. Thank you. The average weekly audience hasn't changed. We won't get down to that granular audience until Move 2.0. It just takes a while to build it. When it comes to the sign, we've added in the dwell time, the audience dwell. So based on the average speed that someone is traveling past a sign, and also the sign dwell. So what is the ad play length? So if something's 7 seconds or 10 seconds, it has a different audience in Move 1.5. And then, we've also added in share of time. So that, if you're buying 20% share of time or 10% share of time, you will end up with different audience in Move 1.5. And the Neuro Impact Factor is being reported against the impressions. The Neuro Impact Factor, importantly, is just about the format. It's not taking into account creative or contextual relevancy or anything like that. It's purely what is the format delivering in terms of an impact. At an average level, individual signs would be different. And the likelihood to see is we've also added to the likelihood to see impressions where we give you the likelihood to see. We've added in the opportunity to see so that you can see the volume of people in that location as well, which is important if you're comparing to other metrics. So there's a bit going on, and that's all in the new reporting. I'll talk more about that in a minute. So, I mentioned share of time. Why have we moved to share of time? Really because that is what you buy. You don't buy share of voice, you're buying time on a screen. So share of voice is those calculations you would do comparing to other media in terms of how much you spent, all those sorts of things. Share of time is really what you bought. And it enables us, by using the percentage of share of time that you bought, to measure the impressions that time gives you. And more importantly, I suppose, is that all of the OMA members are moving towards, with a standardization project, which is a separate thing happening at the moment, to ensuring that you can buy share of time across every asset that they are selling you from a digital campaign. And all of the share of times that you'll be buying from the OMA members who have their signage measured in Move will be, that share of time will be available in Move. So completing the picture and making it easy for you to buy out of home. How do we calculate the new impressions? Well, we're building a new audience with Move 2.0. For now, we've got the existing likelihood to see audience. So we've started with that audience data when building the impressions out for move 1.5. That represents the amount of people that have passed a sign and looked at a sign. And we've adjusted those people based on the digital out-of-home campaign, using broad factors, as I said, around how long do they dwell. So what is the average dwell in a train station? What is the average dwell in a shopping centre? What are the average speed that they're passing a roadside sign with? The play length, and that comes down to, as I said, 7 seconds are going to be different to 10 seconds are going to be different to 20-second ad plays. And the share of time using, and the effective share of time. We've put that together using global learnings, but effectively it comes down to how long does the audience dwell, divided by the ad play gives you how many advertisers could be seen, and then based on the share of time that you're buying, it will determine the amount of impressions that person on that visit can deliver. And we're plotting that in the move, as I said, as an LTS impression. So I think the thing to remember here is that the LTS impressions are the new language. Before, in the old move, you had LTS contacts. An individual person would only be measured once. Now you have it as impressions. A person could be measured more than once against a sign if they dwell long enough to see the whole loop go around and come back again. Say, on a train station platform, they may dwell long enough for that. So let's have a look at an example. Let's say this sign, its current LTS contacts was 50,000 in move. That represents 50,000 people looked at this sign when they went past. Now we've adjusted it based on the audience dwell and the play length and the share of time. There may only be 32,000 impressions based on that combination of audience dwell, play length, and share of time. And in total, across all the advertisers on that sign, there would be 215,000 impressions. And it means that some people are seeing more than one advertiser while they're waiting for their bus or driving past or walking past. So that's how we got to the new audience numbers. We've also added in the Neuro Impact Factor for the first time. The data behind these factors comes from the industry study that we undertook over the last couple of years into basically the brain's response to long-term memory encoding and emotional intensity as they were exposed to different out-of-home formats in a filmed environment. As terms of a study, it's the largest of its kind that Neuro Insight, who we commissioned to do this study, has ever delivered into any media, be it out-of-home, radio, television, or online. And we chose Neuro Insight because they have worked extensively in this field, and they've undertaken a lot of studies into the brain's response to advertising across all different types of channels. To give you a feel for the study we've undertaken, this video that we'll run now for you it gives you a bit more understanding.
2 years in the making, a nationwide study of everyday Australians going about their typical journeys. We studied 2,050 people and their interaction with outdoor signs across every format. Classic and digital, which amounts to over 1 million data points. We constructed video journeys as typical everyday experiences. Eye tracking determined when the person glanced at each sign, and the resulting neurodata reveals the moments that are encoded into long-term memory and the strength of the emotional response. The combination of eye tracking and neurodata provides a granular analysis of the passive real-time impact of out-of-home signs. Here is a typical response to a classic sign. The peak responses determine the power at which certain moments are encoded in the brain. We then looked at a response to a digital sign. We see an even greater neuro response. A digital ad triggers a 63% higher level of impact. Looking at the brain specifically, the impact of a digital sign is even more visible. Digital drives a higher impact on memory and emotion. The data shows that outdoor advertising's power and effectiveness can be quantified and used to plan campaigns. It's called the Neuro Impact Factor. The Neuro Impact Factor is an algorithm made up of memory plus emotion
and is multiplied by peak moments that strongly correlates to real-world sales. In Move 1.5, both classic and digital will have a Neuro Impact Factor, giving you a qualitative metric alongside reach and frequency to help you plan campaigns. Because now, with the help of neuroscience, we can measure when an ad is encoded to memory, providing undeniable proof of the neuro impact of out of home.
So that gives you a feel for the study that we've undertaken. As you can see, there's a bit going on there. One of the things it talked about in the video was that digital has, on average, a 63% higher impact than classic. And that is most useful as a metric when you're considering the same format and what is classic and what is digital. When you think about other areas that may have impacts on other areas that have an impact on the neuroscience results, was here's some of them on the screen here, and it's probably worth talking about these a little bit as you get to understand different formats. The first was size. Size was important, not just from saying a big billboard versus a small billboard, but size was also important in terms of relationship to the audience. The closer someone was to a sign, the bigger it was going to be to them. In Move 1.5, we just worked with the size itself. In Move 2, we will dive into that a little bit more. But size is certainly something that will affect the Neuro Impact Factor scores. The other two elements, firstly, is movement. Movement's not just the movement of the sign, so transition between digital ads, scrolling signs, for example. It is also the movement of the whole vehicle. So we saw that the public transport vehicles that were moving, producing, for the same size signs, a better Neuro Impact Factor score. And then also we saw, differences within the vehicle between, the vehicular people in the cars versus also the pedestrians in terms of the roadside environment. So all of those can help you to understand the Neuro Impact Factor a little bit better. The other thing, I suppose, that we wanted to understand was how did it compare across the formats? And what you can see here is the range from, the range across the formats for classic and the range for digital. You can see that 63% uplift. So all the results here are being indexed back to the classic average at 100. But when we also had a look at them with Neuro Insights across their vault, what were they seeing? In terms of radio, in terms of the ads that are played on radio, they could show us the scale, from a 60 to a 68 to a 284, again, indexed to the average of classic, and do the same again for 15-second television commercials and 30-second television commercials. And what we were able to see there is that the results for out of home, at a glance, medium, measuring that long-term memory encoding and emotional intensity, they were similar to what you can get out of radio and out of 15-second television commercials, and some of the lower performing 30-second television commercials. So as a medium, we're able to deliver impacts similar to other broadcast mediums. I suppose the most important thing to remember here is that the NIF score is that all formats are delivering an effective impact. You cannot have a NIF score without delivering an effective impact. You would have seen in the video they were measuring the peaks in long-term memory encoding and emotional intensity above a line. Now, what they were looking for was when do those peaks occur above 0.7? And the reason for that is that, that is the moment that Neuro Insights have worked out through calibrations and validation with sales data, is that if those peaks are occurring, there is a correlation between the amount of those peaks and the sales and the outcome of the campaign. So every out-of-home format that you has an effective impact, and we've measured them based on their scale in the reports that you will see. So how could you use that data in Move 1.5? So let's talk about that and get the best out of it. And to start it off, got another quick video just to talk about what's in the new Move 1.5 reports, and I'll come back and explain it a bit more.
We are evolving Move, upgrading the way you can plan, buy and measure outdoor advertising, making our best-in-class audience measurement system more robust and accurate, measuring the journeys of 9 out of 10 people who leave home each day, putting total weekly audiences for all your outdoor advertising campaigns, both digital and classic, into the palm of your hand. Introducing Move 1.5, upgrading out-of-home audience measurement to include digital signs. Taking into account the unique qualities of digital signs, using the visibility of the sign, the length of dwell of the sign, the length of audience dwell in all out-of-home environments, as well as the share of time you buy. Move 1.5 provides you accurate audience data for all your campaigns. We've also added a new tool to Move, the Neuro Impact Factor, giving you a new metric to make it easier to plan your campaigns. This qualitative metric is a world first, measuring the impact of our classic and digital out-of-home signs. The Neuro Impact Factor was developed by Neuro Insight for Move. This media-agnostic comprehensive study used proven neuroscience methods to measure the subconscious impact of all out-of-home formats. What the study found is that memory and emotion are crucial ingredients in advertising effectiveness. Using the granular data collected, the Neuro Impact Factor metric was created, which measures the real-time passive impact of out-of-home signs, taking memory and emotion and multiplying these two key factors in the moments they peak in the brain. What you will get with this update in Move 1.5 is reach, frequency and impact to guide your digital and classic advertising investment, providing you with a more in-depth understanding of your audiences. These new features will be in Move from 31 January 2022. They herald a new dawn for out-of-home audience measurement and begin our journey developing Move into the future, which will measure all out-of-home formats with more granular audience data across the nation. Move 2.0 will be launched in 2024.
So that gives you a feel for the information. Look, just if I summarize what the reports now include, you've got the LTS impressions. Your classic audience is exactly the same as it was, but digital now has the new LTS impressions. We've used the classic audience and the LTS impressions audience to weight the neuro impact factors of each of the formats. So the score you're getting is based on the signs that you're buying and the volume of audience that they achieve. We've included the OTS audience contacts before any visibility adjustment. That's simply in case you need to understand how Move's audience would compare to another source that you may be getting. And we've put share of time as part of the proposals, or the members have, so that, you know, when you're running that report, it will use the share of time that you're buying. And you can also use your own share of time and adjust just to see what's happening in the Move reports. What do the reports look like? So this is what the report looks like. It's a new layout. We've taken the opportunity to also give it a refresh and update. You've got the LTS in the blue on the left-hand side, the OTS in the green on the right-hand side, and above that, the Neuro Impact Factor scores of the digital component, the classic component, and the total campaign overall. And all of that information is based on the signs that you are putting into the campaign. Different signs will produce different combinations of those. So how can you get the most out of that? I'm sure some of you are just thinking, let's go for the most impact, get the biggest score. I would suggest that you'd think about it as how you might buy other media. You're not going to spend all your money just buying 60-second TVCs or long-form video. You're going to have a combination of media, simply because, or a combination of what you're doing, simply because you want to, maximize the coverage you're getting. It's not all about the best result. If I looked at the best result for a Neuro Impact Factor score, it is the full motion digital screens on train platforms that have got sound. Now, there's only 20 or so of those across the country, you're not going to get a lot of reach and frequency just going for the biggest impact. So to get you thinking about, how you could be using the NIF score, and I'm sure we'll all learn a lot about it over the next couple of years, but how you could use it, I'm going to run another quick video with some thoughts and come back and talk about them.
Recent developments in neuroscience are helping us get closer to knowing how the brain works, what we remember, and how this relates to our actions. That's great news if you want to make sure your campaign hits the mark. Meet the Neuro Impact Factor, a new metric available in Move 1.5. The Neuro Impact Factor comes from our study that recorded the key moments when long-term memory and emotion peak in the brain. These two elements demonstrate the impact of an advertisement on the audience. In Move 1.5, you can see this impact for every out-of-home format across the entire network of signs, both classic and digital. This world-first metric allows you to optimize your out-of-home campaign more effectively and accurately than ever before. Using the known measures of reach, frequency, and adding the factor that is unique to outdoor signs, impact. Imagine how this new insight might help you meet your campaign objectives. Be it brand building and awareness or sales activation, the Neuro Impact Factor, in conjunction with reach and frequency, will help you choose the right mix of formats and locations to realize your campaign goals. Every outdoor campaign you plan and buy will come with reach, frequency, impressions, and the Neuro Impact Factor. Use it now in Move 1.5.
All right, just answering a question. So, there's a lot, as I said, we'll learn about using the NIF as a group as we go forward. But I think from an industry perspective, we believe the main considerations for using the NIF alongside reach and frequency would be, first of all, if you're looking to increase the NIF score, remember things such as size of the sign and the movement of the sign is going to improve that one. But you need to balance that, I think, with, your campaign objectives as a whole. As you'd be aware, one of the best ways to getting audience covering is that multi-format buy to maximise delivery on the campaign objectives of reach and frequency, just as you'd buy across channels when you're buying television or online. I think the other element that we haven't measured yet, and we may not get round to measuring it in Move, but it's elements that 1.5 is not bringing in, contextual relevance. There's probably no point in having a NIF score higher in a train station, for example, if your campaign is trying to have contextual relevance around the retail environment, and vice versa. If you're looking for the commuter, you're probably going to go and find them in the retail space just because you have a higher NIF score. So contextual relevant is important, and remember, all formats have an effective impact, whether it be classic and digital, big or small. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope that gives you a bit better understanding of Move 1.5, and we'll open up to questions. I did type an answer to one of the questions in there around faces. What does Move mean by faces? Faces is the language that Move uses when it talks about the advertising space that you purchase. So a classic sign, a billboard, for example, has got one face. A digital billboard, on the other hand, may have multiple faces as it rotates through the slots in the player. Those are what we're measuring when it comes to the audience in Move. What is the audience of that display when it is presented to the audience? Is there any other questions? I love a question.
Looks like there's no questions. So what we will do is I can direct anyone to Grant as well. We'll also record this. It's been recorded and will be housed in the IMAA channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Now everyone,
thank you everyone.
Thank you Grant and the OMA for that update and insight to everything and all those movements. And I'll talk to everyone next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.